Who gon' slide? Who gon' slide? Who gon' slay? Who gon' slay? Bitch, I'm looking for you. Keep them bold as pay. Bold as pay. I up that vibe. Up that vibe. Where you at? Where you at? I'm a 7-figure player. Chase a race. Yeah. I got the pistol grip and stick 'em up. It's time to end this living. Chicken bread, my mission. Fill it up. My money different. Probably spread your back on steak and shrimp and money slippers. Money stretch and flip it. Bitch, I'm sick. No penicillin. Yeah, $1,000 jeans. True religion. Not my thing. Private client living. Private driver driving me. Puffin' smoke until I fly. You think I'm private flying green? Up in London, Paris, Amsterdam. Again, I'm overseas. Who gon' slide? Who gon' slide? Who gon' slay? Who gon' slay? Bitch, I'm looking for you. Keep them bold as pay. Bold as pay. I up that vibe. Up that vibe. Where you at? Where you at? I'm a 7-figure player. Chase a race. Chase a race.
7-figure trigger ain't nothing unless it's commas that beyond repair. Big juice on the rampage for them dollars, yeah. Let them step, got my balaclava, shoot the witness. Paid off all the judges like Gotti, I got the system set. Rolled up in the leg lock, this 40 make his hip hop. Big shake while on the mission, stack the bread until that shit pop. We far from holy, one and only one I slide for. Got plenty I would die for, they'll send you to the good side. Where you at? Where you was? Bitch, I be out for them drugs. Got some homies call me Gold, I got some others call me Cuz. Show me love, no it's fake, so I'm sliding with my Drake's. He don't wanna meet his nigga, that's okay, I'll meet his face.
Who gon' slide? Who gon' slide? Who gon' slay? Who gon' slay? Bitch, I'm looking for you. Keep them bold as pay. Bold as pay. I up that vibe. Up that vibe. Where you at? Where you at? I'm a 7-figure player. I'm a 7-figure player. Who gon' slide? Who gon' slide? Who gon' slay? Who gon' slay? Bitch, I'm looking for you. Keep them bold as pay. Bold as pay. I up that vibe. Up that vibe. Where you at? Where you at? I'm a 7-figure player. Chase a race. Chase a race. Chase a race.
Hey Hitler, you probably didn't even hate the Jews. That was just the meth making you crazy, dog.
How much does it cost for fascism? How much do the taxpayers have to pay for a fascist country?
Stop being cowards, because the collective cowardice of you and people like you is what has led to the circumstances of today. You can stop letting the enemy dictate the terms of your struggle. They're evil. They are actively doing evil. So treat them like the evil that they are.
The time to start is now, right? The time to plant a tree is 10 years ago, and the second best time is now. Strikes are the most effective way to stop profits, get demand, and force policy changes. If you can shut down profit, you can make any politician do anything.
I don't want to be part of the system as it works.
It's time to stop pretending otherwise. It's time to be ruthless, and time to afford them the same amount of grace that they give to their Palestinian victims, because they are only going to get more and more ruthless with their victims if you don't.
Mic check 1 2. No, we're not playing Zelda. No, 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 no. Okay. Welcome to the stream. We're gonna start off with kind of general headlines, and then we'll go into the Electronic Intifada's live stream with the Resistance Report. That looks interesting. The moment U.S. missile strikes third tanker for violating Gulf of Oman blockade. A blockade on a blockade, is it? Second night of violent protest in Northern Ireland.
Arrest in Northern Ireland. Police in Belfast using water cannons on protesters. Their cars set on fire. This all comes after a stabbing attack earlier this week. James Longman is tracking the latest. Good morning, James.
Yeah, hi, Lindsay. There's been a second night of violent protests in Belfast in Northern Ireland. Crowds of young men clashed with police, throwing rocks and bottles. This is after an immigrant from Sudan was charged with a brutal knife attack on a man in the city. Police say protesters have been trying to reach a hotel they believe was housing immigrants, and disturbingly, earlier this week, some went door to door in a local street looking for foreigners and torching homes. Police responded.
I'd fit in perfectly in Ireland. In Belfast. In Belfast, no less.
Responded last night with water cannon, although thankfully things were not as violent as the night before. And Elon Musk has been accused of trying to whip up violence by sharing lists on X of locations where protests could take place and retweeting a message from a far-right politician with the message, "Millions must go." The family of the man who lost his wife died in the attack have appealed for calm, and they say that while they were completely devastated by what happened to him, they reject violence as a response.
Did you know about the USS Liberty? 1967. The USS Liberty was attacked and sunk, claiming, I think, almost everyone on board. And it was a reconnaissance. Oh. Well, just in, Thomas Massey slams... What the fuck? Slams Israel for 1967 strike on USS Liberty that claimed 34 lives. It is a direct attack from Israel on the United States. Because the theory is that the USS Liberty was a reconnaissance vessel and might have heard in on, might have listened in on Israel's radio chatter on Did Israel actually do that? Like, is there proof, or are they just making shit up? It was swept under the rug because they were our allies. This is called Forgotten History.
On June 6, 1967, Israeli Air Force fighters attacked Egyptian air bases, destroying 80% of their air assets. By June 7th, the air forces of Jordan and Syria were also destroyed, mostly on the ground, but the war was being monitored. The United States and other nations had a vested interest in what was transpiring in the Middle East, and gathering intelligence was critical for both political and strategic military planning. What was the USS Liberty? Why was it in the eastern Mediterranean Sea during the Six-Day War? Why did Israeli air and naval forces attack an American ship? Why was so much effort put into the cover-up after the event?
Hello, I'm Colin Heaton, a veteran of the United States Army and Marine Corps, former history professor, book author, and welcome to this episode of Forgotten History.
USS Liberty was a floating CIA intelligence gathering platform monitoring all transmissions from all sources involved in the 1967 Six-Day War. Israeli progress was
a CIA reconnaissance intel gathering ship, basically. It's kind of a small vessel, but it was loaded up with listening devices and stuff.
Followed, as well as the Arab coalition of Egypt, Syria, and Jordan, known as the United Arab Republic.
So in other words, while Israel was just harassing all of its neighbors, like, what business does Israel have destroying 80% of Egypt's air capabilities? That's insane.
As a result,
but 1967 was the Nakba, and millions were being ethnically cleansed from Gaza at this point.
Israel secured Sinai, all of Jerusalem, and the Golan Heights. But Israeli intelligence had reported to Chief of Israeli Naval Operations, Admiral Issi Rahar, that a ship had fired upon El Arish in Sinai. This was proven to be a ruse. The only ship in that area was the USS Liberty, which flew the U.S. flag and was in international waters. In what was described by both President Lyndon B. Johnson and the Israeli government as a case of mistaken identity, Israeli air and naval assets attacked the USS Liberty on June 8th, killing 34 Americans and wounding 172 of the 294-man crew.
Okay, so it was a 294-man crew, only 34 people were killed.
Previously, the United States had announced that it had no naval forces within hundreds of miles of the battlefront on the floor of the United Nations a few days earlier. However, the USS Liberty was assigned to monitor the fighting. As a result of a series of United States communication failures, whereby messages directing the ship not to approach within 100 miles were not received by the Liberty, the ship sailed to within 14 miles off the Sinai coast. Also notified of the supposed attack upon El Arish were Colonel Shmuel Kislev, head of Israeli Air Force operations, and General Yeshayahu Benket, the head of Israeli Air Force intelligence. Kislev told his pilots that, quote, if they could confirm that it was a military ship, they could hit it, end quote.
Okay. I don't think they did that. I think they did not even confirm which flag was being flown because it was literally flying the American flag. They just blasted it and asked. They shot first and asked questions later. And so here we are. I think is Thomas Massey? He's a Republican from Kentucky. So a lot of anti-Semites will, claim this as like Israel has never been our ally. The Jews are always scheming and trying to get one over on the West and stuff, and they point to the attack on the USS Liberty as one of them, when in reality it's a Zionist ethno-colonial project that is just running and gunning, trying to do a speed run of a genocide, and to the point where they even attack their own allies. But I think from a Republican from Kentucky, his condemnation of this attack will probably be more anti-Semitic flavored, I think. But we'll see. Israel is falling out of favor with people on the left and the right. So we'll see.
Mr. Speaker, it's my great honor, maybe one of the biggest honors of my lifetime, to stand here on the floor and do something that's 59 years overdue, to recognize the survivors and those who gave their lives on the USS Liberty 59 years ago today, when they were viciously attacked by IDF jets, and also after that by torpedo boats. I'm going to tell you a little bit of their story. And there, by the way, there's at least a dozen of them here today with us.
Oh, shit.
I just met with them in my office, and they related this story to me. It was a clear day. The USS Liberty was one of the most technologically sophisticated ships in the Navy.
Hey, Lee, how's it going?
And it was
welcome.
Sent to observe the six-day war going on in the Middle East between Israel and its neighbors.
When was this from? What, this speech? This, address? So it's 3 days ago. It's going all right. We're just listening to this guy from Kentucky talk about the USS Liberty. When Israel attacked the United States directly.
It arrived on June 7th, and the weather was clear. The planes came out to meet them, to investigate, and then on the next day, on June 8th, they started the day. The visibility was unlimited. The American flag was flying proudly on the USS Liberty. More planes came from Israel to surveil the boat, the ship. And they thought they were in good shape, but what happened next surprised them all. French Mirage jets showed up, and for 25 minutes, strafed and attacked the USS Liberty. They shot rockets. They shot 30-millimeter cannons into the hull and into the ship. They even dropped napalm on the bridge of the ship. This was an effort to kill everybody on board. There was no intention of taking prisoners. After the 25 grueling minutes of attack on this virtually unarmed ship, and they thought things were over and they could recover, the torpedo boats showed
And this guy is a Republican from Kentucky.
up. 3 torpedo boats. They launched 4 torpedoes. One of them hit the hull of the USS Liberty and killed 25 people instantly. It blew a 40-foot by 40-foot hole in the side of this ship. They were intent on sinking it. But they were also intent on not having a single survivor. According to eyewitness accounts, the Israelis machine-gunned the lifeboats that they put down. They machine-gunned the firefighters who were on the deck. They were bringing the wounded and the dead to the mess hall to triage them. They had one doctor who was trying to help them all, put a few stitches in. It was harrowing, and it's amazing. If not for that crew, that boat would have sunk that day. But it still wasn't over. Helicopters showed up, combat helicopters. And the USS Liberty, even though their signals were being jammed by the Israelis, got a signal out. And there were ships that tried to respond. The USS Saratoga, the USS America sent planes. Both of them sent planes to help the USS Liberty. And something happened that's never happened before. A ship under attack, the planes were recalled. This has never happened before. And they sat there for 17 hours. 34 dead, 174 wounded, out of 294 crew members. That's over 70% casualty rate, unheard of. The Israelis were intent on leaving no survivor. And what about our own military? Why did they not send anybody for 17 hours to help these men? So what really happened? You know, the official reports say that it was a case of mistaken identity. But if you listen to Dean Rusk, former Secretary of State, Richard Helms, CIA Director, Bobby Ray Inman, head of the NSA, Captain Ward Boston, who was the chief counsel of the...
They had illegal prisoners of war. The Israelis did, and they were talking about, well, information about the conditions of these prisoners of war. Oh, thank you. Information about these like tortured prisoners was going to get out through this CIA reconnaissance vessel in the Mediterranean, so Israel sent ships to destroy it without even looking at the flag that was being flown.
The court of inquiry.
And the United States just took it. They were like, "Oh, that was our bad."
If you listen to Admiral Moore, who served in Pearl Harbor, Midway, commanded both the Atlantic and Pacific Fleet, and was chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, none of these distinguished men think this was an accident. They think it was intentional murder by the country of Israel, either as a false flag operation or because they simply didn't want anybody observing what they were doing that day. Well, I've got a call to action for everybody here. Honor these individuals. Quit ignoring that they exist. Go to their website, ussliberty.org.
No. That's not the call to action. The call to action should be so everybody should remember the legacy that Israel has had with even its own allies and stop supporting them militarily. Not visit the website of the survivors. What the fuck is that? Toothless. Moving on. Trump says he wants Karg Island, but doesn't think Americans have the stomach for it. What? Okay. And then we'll move on to the electronic intifada.
CBS News national security analyst Aaron McLean. And Aaron, thank you for your time. So the president said on Fox that he doesn't know if America has the stomach for taking Karg Island. But then there's this question of what would that actually entail if he does go ahead with that plan?
Yeah, well, I confess I was surprised to see the returned focus to Karg Island of all the various escalatory measures that the president might want to threaten. First of all, it would be a substantial deployment. That island is about 5 miles long, north to south, 1 to 2 miles east to west. It's not a tiny speck of ground, but I actually think much more importantly than that, the whole purpose of seizing Karg Island would be to achieve control over Iranian energy exports. But the United States is maintaining a
My theory is his feelings are still hurt from being booed at the Knicks game. Did you see this? Ooh, the audio's bad. It was during the national anthem. Okay, so that's what the crowd sounded like normally. Here it's about to show the national anthem. Everyone trying to keep a straight face around him. That's so crazy. Apparently it's not typical for a United States president to attend an NBA game. What's this? U.S. striking third tanker for violating Gulf of Oman blockade. A blockade of a blockade. Yeah. We still got tens of millions of dollars worth of assets at the bottom of the Red Sea. One of them was literally just a plane that fell off an aircraft carrier because Yemen was shooting missiles. It's like... It's just, propaganda. Like, look, we hit a ship. Okay, what does that mean for the overall conflict? It doesn't mean shit, really. Alright, we'll start with the news roundup and then...
But first, let's take a look at the news. Here's a brief summary of some of the latest developments this week in Palestine and Lebanon. In Gaza, Israel carried out massacres against children, families, fishers, and police officers as the humanitarian situation continues to deteriorate with no end in sight. On Tuesday, Israel abducted 9 fishers while they were working off the shores of Gaza City and Deir Balah in central Gaza, amid ongoing targeting of fishers and restrictions preventing them from earning a living and feeding their community. The abductions come after a young fisher, Mohammed Musa Abu Jiyab, was killed by Israeli naval forces who fired live ammunition at him while he was fishing off the coast of Deir Balah on...
I know you might think, oh, well, people in Gaza are starving. Well, Aren't they on a coast? Why not just fish in the ocean? You have endless fish. Well, like, this is what happens if you try to fish in the ocean.
June 7th. According to the Gaza Fishermen's Committee, at least 238 fishers have been killed by Israel since October 2023, and 90% of the fishing infrastructure has been destroyed by 2.5 years of genocide. Israel has also banned the entry of fishing boat engines and equipment into Gaza. In an undated video, Mohammed Abu Jiab had shown off his unique fishing technique in which he dives into the sea and tows a fishing net wrapped around his waist.
اللهم صل عليك يا محمد. ايوه بدهم يعلموا علينا. ايوه علم عليهم. شد. ايوه شد يا.
On Monday, June 8th, reporter Mohammed Al-Qumsan filmed an Israeli helicopter gunship opening fire directly into a densely populated residential area in Gaza City. According to local reports, at least 8 Palestinians, including several small children, were injured in the attack on the Tal al-Hawa neighborhood. On that day, at least 7 Palestinians were killed in a series of Israeli strikes across Gaza, from the north to the south. In Jabalia refugee camp, 3 Palestinians, including Jad Suleiman, an 8-year-old boy, were killed in an Israeli airstrike on the Anwar Aziz Square. Jad was killed in the attack while he was on his way to school, according to his family. His father, clutching Jad's little blue backpack, sat and wept beside his body. The boy is gone, he says. There is no power or strength without God. There is no God but God. The boy is gone, Yahya. Jad is gone. Our wonderful Jad is gone. This clip was filmed by reporter Hamza Kureika.
لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله لا إله إلا الله راح جاب يا يحيى راح جاب يا يحيى راح جاب كل ما شاء الله على الولد راح الولد راح يعمل بده دائما بده يقعد نموره من عند عمه من نموره العمر.
In Al-Mawasi, Khan Yunis, in southern Gaza, at least 2 Palestinians were killed and several others injured in an Israeli attack on Monday that targeted a group of civilians. Our contributor Ahmed Al-Najjar reported that it was the second attack on the same area that day. Earlier, 4 Palestinians were injured in an airstrike, he said. Wafa news agency reported that several Palestinians were wounded in a strike carried out by Israeli reconnaissance drones along Salah ad-Din Road in Deir Balah in the central Gaza Strip, also on Monday. On Sunday, June 7th, a 15-year-old child, Abbas Abu Jabal, was playing football in the street west of Gaza City when Israel attacked a nearby car. The child was killed in the airstrike. Our contributor Mahmoud Assad filmed the funeral procession his family and community held for Abbas. At least 3 other Palestinians were killed in the attack, according to the Wafa news agency. Citing medical sources at Al-Shifa Hospital, Wafa reported that an Israeli drone fired a missile at a civilian vehicle and nearby pedestrians close to Al-Burak school in the Nasser neighborhood, northwest of the city. On the same day, Israel bombed a police security post in Al-Mawasi, killing at least 5 and injuring 17 others. Footage captured by reporter Badr Tabash shows crowds of Palestinians in the busy intersection where the attack took place, with dead and wounded people lying on the ground and being transported in the back of motorcycle-driven carts. Israel has systematically targeted police and security personnel and their vehicles and posts in an effort to cause societal chaos and undermine safety protocols around Gaza. On Saturday, June 6th, a 7-year-old child, Mariam Kadoum, was killed alongside her father in an Israeli airstrike on a displacement shelter in the Rimal neighborhood of Gaza City. 4 other Palestinians were killed, and at least 3 other children, including a toddler, were injured in the attack. Photographer Saeed Jarras filmed grieving family members who gathered at the morgue at Al-Shifa Hospital to bid farewell to Mariam and her father, quote, amid scenes of profound loss and heartbreak.
Fuck.
That evening, our contributor Ahmed Al-Najjar reported that, quote, Israeli warplanes bombed a house surrounded by displacement tents at the heart of Al-Mawasi in western Khan Yunis.
Never gets any easier. Never gets any easier.
The occupation issued a prompt terror evacuation order before the strikes. He posted photos of the aftermath of the airstrikes in the morning. Quote, this is the aftermath of last night's Israeli strikes on Al-Mawasi. Hundreds of Palestinians are now without shelters because Israel continues to rain down its missiles on Palestinian tents, despite the so-called ceasefire. In Gaza City, Al Jazeera's correspondent Hani Mahmoud reported that at least 5 people were killed when Israel fired 2 missiles from a drone at a wedding tent, quote, not only immediately and directly killing and injuring people inside the tent, but also there was shrapnel that flew at a very high speed into the surrounding area. and next door to the displacement sites at an UNRWA school that is packed with displaced families, and many injuries were reported from inside the classrooms where people are sheltering. Close to 15 injuries with different degrees of severity were reported, he said. The day before, on Friday, June 5th, a 25-year-old man, Mohammed Ferwana, was killed in an Israeli bombing on his home in Khan Yunis, the day that he was supposed to get married. A child was shot in the head by an Israeli sniper in the Al-Mahata area east of Gaza City on Friday. Reporter Abdallah Kamel captured video of the injured child receiving care in the hospital, bandages covering his head and his clothes soaked in blood. Ahmed Al-Najjar reported that at dawn on Friday, a young Palestinian woman was murdered and 15 displaced Palestinians were wounded by a bombing from an Israeli helicopter gunship on makeshift tents in crowded Al-Mawasi, Khan Yunis. The Palestinian Health Ministry in Gaza said that as of Wednesday, at least 981 Palestinians have been killed by Israel since the fraudulent ceasefire was declared in October 2020.
Wait, how many?
And 81 Palestinians have. The Palestinian Health Ministry in Gaza said that as of Wednesday, at least 981 Palestinians have been killed by Israel since the fraudulent ceasefire was declared in October 2025. Dr. Hussam Abu Sofia, the pediatrician and director of Kamal Adwan Hospital in Beit Lahia, who was abducted by Israeli forces in December 2024 and has been held in detention ever since, was transferred to solitary confinement in Nafha prison this week, which his family says is Israel's retaliation for his lawyers submitting.
They show nothing on the mainstream news. Yes. You are so right, Lee. If there's a mainstream news outlet, people are dying in Gaza every single day, despite there being a ceasefire. It's a fraudulent ceasefire. And if there's an outlet that does not at least mention Gaza every single day, like, they are part of it. They're part of the Zionist entity. You can still serve Zionism without being like, hello, nice to meet you, I'm a Zionist, you know? I was watching, I think it was ABC or NBC, and at the end of their broadcast, they were like, and here's a heartwarming story about how a little boy was reunited with his parents at the airport and stuff, and it was like, there are just hundreds of orphans in Gaza, with no one to look after. Like, children are raising children in Gaza. Their displacement camps are being directly struck with airstrikes. And I stopped listening to a Democracy Now! Because after they mentioned Gaza, they would give equal play to, like, supposed Iranian proxies attacking, like, individual communities, like, in Britain. Like, it was so specific, and that's just a Zionist narrative. There was no proof that they were Iranian proxies. It's just, this is what reporting on Gaza looks like. This is what shining a light on Palestine looks like. And they are online only. Electronic Intifada. There are no ads. They are crowd-funded. And they're relatively new as well. Like, Electronic Intifada could disappear just as easily as they appeared one day, you know? Double Down News is good from the UK. Yes, I've heard of them. I also like a Navara Media. That they do good work. And Drop Site. drop site news. They are also
Being
pretty
appealed to
good.
the Israeli High Court for his release. Dr. Abu Safia, as we have been reporting, has been subjected to extreme torture and medical neglect by Israeli prison guards since his abduction a year and a half ago, and is being detained without charge or trial. Dr. Abu Safia's son, Elias, who is also a physician, told the Guardian newspaper that, quote, the only accusation is his refusal to obey the Israeli army's orders to evacuate the hospital and leave the patients to their fate. Elias said that the family was told that the solitary confinement cell is no larger than 1 meter square. Speaking to the New Arab this week, Elias said that, quote, about 2 months ago, my father spoke with me and asked me to carry his voice to the world. He asked me to reach out to the late Palestinian journalist Anas al-Sharif and ask him to remind people of our case, believing that Anas was still alive. That moment never leaves me. A man so isolated from the world that he does not even know what has happened beyond his prison walls, he continued. Anas al-Sharif.
Oh yeah, and like I cannot believe that Lebanon is not entering mainstream news. That is a sovereign country having its southern border utterly ravaged and ethnically cleansed by Israel, and it's just silent. Like, Israel strikes Beirut. That's crazy.
A young father and correspondent for Al Jazeera, was hunted and murdered by Israeli forces in August 2025. On Wednesday, Dr. Abu Safia appeared at the hearing for his appeal by video link from the prison cell. Reporters screen grabbed an image of the doctor, who looks frail and has visible marks on his arms. As of airtime, the court has yet not made a decision on his appeal. Dr. Abu Safia's attorney, Nasser Oda, stated that he remains in solitary confinement without any clear explanation other than, quote, security-related claims put forward by the Israeli authorities.
This is huge because there's a documentary called Gaza Doctors Under Attack, and the documentary ends with him being abducted. And the last thing you see is like him in his white coat just clambering over rubble to this IDF APC. And that's the last time anyone saw him, and now here he is. Signs of life, I guess, you know.
Oda added that, quote, despite repeated requests by his legal counsel for appropriate medical care, Dr. Abu Safia has not received any treatment. He continues to suffer from back pain resulting from physical abuse during his transfer and is still experiencing ongoing vision and eye problems. On Wednesday, Oda relayed a message from Dr. Abu Safia to reporters, quote, I am a pediatrician providing medical care to patients, the injured, and the vulnerable in the Gaza Strip. I carried out my work in accordance with international law and humanitarian standards. My detention is an unjust and arbitrary imprisonment. Dr. Hussam Abu Safia is one of 14 Palestinian doctors from Gaza currently being jailed by Israel without charge.
And you know what else you won't see on mainstream news is coming up, the resistance report where we watch these FPV drones strike IDF units. No way would these images be on mainstream news. Images of Israel being absolutely embarrassed by Hezbollah. Wouldn't even make it close to headlines.
Turning to the occupied West Bank, Israeli soldiers killed a 7-month-old baby in front of his parents in the city of Al Khalil on June 5th.
What
Sam,
in the
who
fuck?
had probably only just begun to sit up on his own and eat solid food, was in the car with his parents who were driving home from a visit with family members in Bethlehem. His aunt, Samah, told Mondo Weiss that there was an Israeli patrol near their neighborhood. Surprised by their presence, Sam's father, Fahad, stopped the car suddenly and the soldiers raised their rifles. Quote, one of them fired a single bullet that struck the steering wheel and broke it into fragments, sending shrapnel into the car, she added. The shrapnel struck little Sam in the face, killing him, she told Mondo Weiss. Fahad was filmed by reporter Sohaib Wiwe while he carried Sam's little body in the hospital elevator.
Fuck. His mother is in intensive care, and his father, wounded in the hand, buried him alone the next morning. He was only 7 months old. Jesus fucking Christ.
Carried Sam's little body in the hospital elevator.
This is gonna be really tough to watch. Oh my god.
Sam's mother, Dania Salame, was wounded by another fragment that hit her in the neck, while Fahed was wounded in the hand. Samah said that Dania was still in intensive care when she learned that her infant had been killed by the invading Israeli occupation forces. Speaking from the hospital to Al Arabi News, Dania recalled the moment the Israeli soldiers opened fire on their car. Quote, I was sitting in the back with my son in my arms. The bullet hit my husband's hand and my son's head and me. My son was only 7 months old. He died. I went to him and found him covered in blood. I ran with him through the street. Someone found me and took me quickly to the hospital. A few hours later, he died. My son was murdered, she said. In the northern West Bank on Wednesday, the Israeli army forced Palestinians in the Jabal al-Salehin neighborhood near the Nur Shams refugee camp in Tulkarem to leave their homes for the day in order to conduct what they called military exercises. Locals told the Anadolu news agency that the military ordered residents to open the windows in their homes for the exercise, as the army dispatched armored vehicles and heavy bulldozers into the nearby Nur Shams camp, which has been under Israeli siege since early 2024. During an invasion into the town of Akraba near Nablus on Wednesday, an Israeli military vehicle ran over a Palestinian teenager, Wafa reported. After running over the 18-year-old, the soldiers prevented ambulance crews from reaching him, sources said. Local reporters captured video of the youth being transferred into a Palestine Red Crescent ambulance. On June 7th, a 14-year-old Palestinian child was wounded by Israeli live-fire shrapnel during an ongoing Israeli military raid on Balata refugee camp east of Nablus, according to the Wafa news agency. The Palestine Red Crescent Society reported that the child sustained shrapnel injuries to the head and was transferred to hospital for medical treatment. Earlier in the day, Israeli undercover forces infiltrated Balata camp, followed by the arrival of several military vehicles. According to local sources, soldiers raided a commercial shop, detained a number of young men inside, and surrounded a house in the camp, Wafa added. Israeli forces continued their offensive throughout the day, deploying snipers on rooftops, surrounding and raiding homes, forcing residents to evacuate at least one house, and searching commercial establishments. The United Nations Human Rights Office this week stated that, quote, raids, search and arrest operations, and other operations by Israeli forces have become a regular occurrence, with more than 20 raids or other operations on average each day across the West Bank during the first 5 months of 2026. A Palestinian woman was expelled from her home by Israeli forces in Khirbet Kalkas, south of Al Khalil, on Monday. Reporter Saheb Wiwe recorded footage of the woman, who says she was given no time to gather even her clothes. The media collective Translating Palestine said that, quote, her home is one of hundreds raised under a system in which Israel makes building permits nearly impossible for Palestinians to obtain across Area C and East Jerusalem, then destroys the structures it deems unauthorized. UN figures show this is not isolated. More than 620 Palestinians were displaced by demolitions in the first months of 2026 alone, roughly 160 families every month, the highest rate the UN has recorded since it began tracking in 2009.
Imagine you've been cultivating a home as a homemaker for like 30 years, and then just one day you're just on the street with nothing. So fucking crazy, man.
1,700 plus families ethnically cleansed in 2025 and over 13,000 between 2009 and 2022. Rights monitors described these demolitions alongside Israeli colonial settler terrorist attacks and movement restrictions as engineering a coercive environment designed to push Palestinians off their land, the media collective added. In the village of Taibe, near Ramallah on Tuesday.
And when it's an elderly person, it's basically a death sentence. Being pushed out onto the street. You literally have to join someone else's home or family unit in order to survive. It's insane, man.
Night, Israeli settlers committed arson on a massive area of cultivated Palestinian farmland. The town's mayor told the Anadolu news agency that residents heard gunfire around the targeted area, preventing them from reaching the fire to extinguish it. The settlers remained in the area until Israeli forces arrived, he said, adding that Taibe, like other Palestinian towns east of Ramallah, faces repeated settler attacks aimed at forcing residents to leave their land. Taibe is one of the few Palestinian towns in the West Bank that still has a Christian majority, according to church and local accounts. Residents say the town's historical Christian presence dates back to the earliest days of Christianity itself. The attacks do not distinguish between Muslims and Christians. The occupiers want the land without its people, the town's mayor said. In recent months, the town has seen a series of settler attacks, including fires set around the historic Al-Khadr church, assaults on residents' property, and racist graffiti, local officials told Anadolu. Other settler attacks were reported in Nablus, a village near Ramallah, the town of Nahalin, west of Bethlehem, and in Tubas this week. In Lebanon, Israel issued a forced displacement order for the ancient city of Tyre, or Sur, in the south on Tuesday, including all neighborhoods and Palestinian refugee camps, affecting nearly 44,000 people, many of whom were already displaced. On Monday, an airstrike near a Lebanese Red Cross center in Sur reportedly killed 5 people and injured 8 others, including 4 paramedics, the UN said. On June 8th, our contributor Rokhaya Shamsuddin reported that Israel targeted South Lebanon with a massive wave of bombardment, hitting over 50 distinct locations, at least 28 airstrikes, 3 drone attacks, and 19 cases of heavy artillery. For more on the situation on the ground in Lebanon, Rokhaya filed this report for the Electronic Intifada on Wednesday evening.
This is Rokhaya Shamsuddin reporting for the Electronic Intifada. The Israeli air campaign across southern Lebanon has intensified to a catastrophic degree, marking arguably one of the most violent escalations since the phase of the aggression began on March 2nd. The south is being subjected to sustained, systematic bombardment, explicitly targeting residential quarters and vital civilian infrastructure. This onslaught has focused heavily on the historic coastal city of Sur and the surrounding Nabatiya countryside. The crisis in Sur escalated drastically on June 9th when Israeli warplanes launched a wave of heavy strikes on densely populated residential areas, including the Masakin neighborhood and surrounding villages. According to Lebanon's Ministry of Health, these initial attacks killed at least 8 people and wounded more than 30 others, with rescue teams forced to dig through the rubble of flattened buildings for survivors with their bare hands. Immediately following these deadly strikes, Israel issued an unprecedented blanket forced evacuation decree for the entire southern city, ordering residents to flee north of the Zaharani River. Crucially, this order explicitly targeted Sur's historic old city and its predominantly Christian quarter for the first time. The Christian quarter, which is a dense, ancient seafront district of stone houses, churches, and heritage sites, had previously been excluded from these threats and had served as a vital sanctuary for thousands of families seeking refuge from forced displacement.
The Christian Zionists in the United States don't care. I mean, they were upset when a statue of Jesus was being defaced by IDF soldiers in a church that had been destroyed. But where's their outcry over one of the oldest predominantly Christian communities in the Middle East being directly attacked by Israel? It's incoherent.
This specific targeting of the Christian quarter represents a dangerous operational shift. Last week, the Israeli military leveled unsubstantiated claims that Hezbollah resistance fighters were operating within the neighborhood, offering zero evidence, while explicitly demanding that local Christians force the resistance to leave. This constitutes a blatant psychological operation designed to soak sectarian resentment and fracture Lebanon's internal unity by weaponizing the local population against its own defense. On the same day as the devastating attack on Sur, a succession of Israeli air raids across more than a dozen locations brought the daily death toll in the south to at least 14. These strikes intentionally choked transit routes, rural outskirts, and adjacent emergency facilities, effectively paralyzing medical and rescue responses. Since March 2nd, the total nationwide death toll from Israeli attacks has surpassed 3,600 people, with over 1 million residents forcibly displaced from their homes. Israel's campaign has also deliberately targeted those tasked with national defense and emergency relief. Earlier this week, an Israeli strike in Nabatiya killed 3 Lebanese army personnel, including a senior military officer. This brings the number of Lebanese military personnel killed since March to at least 30. Today, South Lebanon is trapped in a constant cycle of forced displacement and aerial bombardment. Medical teams warn that the systematic bombing near clinics and hospitals has pushed the entire southern healthcare network to nearly a total collapse. The escalation in Israeli aggression reflects Israel's inability to achieve decisive results against the Lebanese resistance on the battlefield, pushing it to escalate strikes further against residential and civilian areas across southern Lebanon.
That was Rokhaya Shamsuddin reporting for the Electronic Intifada from Lebanon on Wednesday. We've published many features in the last week, but today we're highlighting A Long and Precarious Journey to Play Soccer by Boteina Hamdan, writing from Ramallah. She writes about a 12-year-old child, Yusuf Jubran, who she says, quote, has had a unique passion for soccer since he was very young. Every day, he spends hours playing football. He rarely lets the ball leave his feet. When he walks from one room to another, he often dribbles the ball with him.
I will be right
He's
back.
a member of a club and trains 4 times a week. He keeps a notebook of soccer moves, best shots, and tactics. His wardrobe is full of football jerseys, and his room's walls are covered with pictures of his favorite team, Spain's Real Madrid, and his favorite player, Cristiano Ronaldo. I know all this because Yusuf is my son. We spend nights talking about all this, but nothing is straightforward, even for a football crazy boy, when you live under military occupation. In the summer of 2024, we had to disappoint him since his father and I couldn't afford a trip to Barcelona with his team. So this year, when he finally got a chance to travel with his club, the Birzeit Stars Academy, to Aqaba in southern Jordan, he was very excited. The trip was scheduled for January 7th, but even the best laid plans are complicated by instability and uncertainty under Israel's occupation. As the trip neared, Yusuf grew more excited. His coach chose him to wear number 7, just like Ronaldo. Then, after receiving the itinerary for the trip, he insisted he would swim in the Red Sea in Aqaba, despite the cold weather. Like most Palestinians in the West Bank, Yusuf is unable to visit our sea. Palestine may lie on the Mediterranean Sea, but with most Palestinian coastal cities occupied, depopulated, and repopulated by Zionists during the Nakba of 1948, and the Gaza Strip occupied in 1967 and cut off from the West Bank for decades, it is almost impossible to get to for those Palestinian residents in the West Bank. Yusuf asked several times if the trip might be canceled. He was growing fearful that his dream might not come true. I encouraged him to stay positive and accept any delay. He tried to look calm, but failed. I am dreaming to travel, to play soccer in the whole world, he said. He also had a different motive. I want to come back home, curious to see the reactions to the gifts I will bring, just like you when you return from a trip with special presents for everyone, he added. I was touched by his generous thinking. Thank God for this lovely child. On January 14th, we had to get ready in the dark to be in Birzeit town center by 5 a.m. It should take just half an hour to drive to Jericho, but it is always sensible to add extra time in case of unexpected military checkpoints or road closures.
By the way, Palestine is struggling to stay in the FIFA competition, and Israel has still not been boycotted. What the fuck is this? World Cup 2026 begins. Is Palestine part of the World Cup? No, the Palestine national football team did not qualify for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Their historic qualifying run ended after drawing their final group game against Oman in June 2025, narrowly missing out on the playoff spots. Wait. Isn't that? It's crazy. Israel will not be competing in the World Cup. Is Israel part of FIFA? Yes. Is Palestine part of FIFA? Palestine gained FIFA membership in 1998. It's so fucking crazy that they still allow Israel to compete in sports. Like, I'm sorry, you're not on friendly terms with the world, no matter how much the United States insists that you are.
Closures. Israel dramatically expanded its already ubiquitous network of military checkpoints and roadblocks throughout the West Bank after October 2023. As of December 2025, per the latest UN count, there are 925 checkpoints or roadblocks permanently or intermittently restricting the movement of 3.4 million Palestinians in the West Bank, including Jerusalem. Yusuf came back full of life and experience. When he showed me some photos he took there, I also saw a new talent in him. I was so impressed with his photos of the sea, I even printed some to decorate our living room. Everything here restricts us and shrinks our children's dreams. Israel has killed hundreds of athletes, mainly in Gaza, during its ongoing genocide there. One of the most disturbing bits of footage from Gaza was when Israel bombed a group of displaced Palestinians while they were playing football in the yard of Al-Auda School in Gaza in July 2024. Beyond the violence, restrictions on movement prevent athletes from moving freely inside Palestine or abroad. Even our national football team, which made the quarterfinals of last year's Arab Cup and were one win away from reaching a mini tournament to qualify for this year's World Cup, faces extraordinary challenges. The players are scattered across different continents and cannot train together regularly, while home games are played in Jordan. For its part, Israel organizes games on stolen Palestinian lands in illegal settlements, and despite repeated complaints by the Palestinian Football Association, attempts to ensure an international boycott of Israeli sports teams has so far not borne fruit. Under military
There you go.
occupation, the simplest opportunities for young athletes, taken for granted by children elsewhere, are transformed into a long ordeal of permits, checkpoints, delays, and endless hours of waiting. Yet our story continues with a quiet resistance that refuses to give up. Yusuf was sad when the journey ended, but he continues to play, smile, and dream of traveling again. It is a form of freedom. With every kick, he overcomes what stands in his way. A stubborn Palestinian footballer is on his way. Those are excerpts from A Long and Precarious Journey to Play Soccer by Botaina Hamdan, writing from Ramallah on electronicintifada.net. Botaina is a Palestinian writer and a refugee from Anaba village, destroyed in 1948, who writes on cultural memory and heritage under war. And now, as we always do, we wanted to highlight people expressing joy, determination, and reclamation across Palestine and around the world. In Gaza, a young rollerblader, Akram Sharif, showed off his skills this week. He says, "They took my hand and my foot, but I'll never stop playing." This was filmed by...
No fucking way. No fucking way.
fellow rollerblader Mohammed Saad.
Liebe Palästina, großer Zionisten. Liebe, liebe, liebe Palästina. Liebe, liebe, liebe Palästina. Liebe Palästina, großer Zionisten.
And that's it for the news roundup. As always, go to electronicintifada.net for much more, especially to read our new features by our brave.
Great song, by the way. Lieve Palestina by Kofia. If you've not heard this, it's good. Kofia is a Swedish group. And the lyrics are freedom for Palestine, crush Zionism.
Liebe Palästina och krossa sionismen. Liebe, liebe, liebe Palästina.
Music break.
Liebe, liebe Palästina. Liebe Palästina och krossa sionismen. Liebe Palästina och krossa sionismen. Och vi har odlat jorden. Och vi har odlat jorden. Och vi har skördat vetet. Och vi har skördat vetet. Vi har plockat citronerna. Och vi har plockat citronerna. Och pressat oliverna. Och pressat oliverna. Och hela världen känner till vår jord. Och hela världen känner till vår jord. Leve, leve, leve Palestina. Leve, leve, leve Palestina. Leve Palestina.
Yep, it's a bop. For your listening pleasure. Soldiers and policemen. It goes hard, honestly. It's a little obscure because it's, again, it's in Swedish, but classic. So that's another thing. Socialist ideas are very popular in Palestine. So there's also an economic component also to wanting to suppress Palestine. Because they could be a shining example for the world that if you can live in harmony with each other, You don't need to steal. You don't need to steal land, labor, resources. Hey! Right on.
Brave writers in Gaza. You're watching the Electronic Intifada live stream. I'm Nora Barros-Friedman with my colleague Ali Abanima.
All right, let's do the resistance report now.
All right, you are watching and listening to the Electronic Intifada. I am John Elmer. This is the Resistance Report on day 979 of Israel's genocide in Gaza.
Let's
and
go.
Day 102 of the battle in South Lebanon. I'll be covering Iran later on in the program, but let's start, as always, with Lebanon and this map that's still a pretty useful map. I reported last week that the Israeli military admitted that they had withdrawn 3 of their divisions that were fighting inside Lebanon. They were particularly on the coast in Nakura area that you see, Bayada. We watched them leave those places more or less. Similar in Bintish Bel, they don't want to have their troops sitting ducks to these FPV drones that Hezbollah is using. But the real vector for the past 2 weeks has been, if you follow the blue line around up the Galilee Panhandle to the top where you see Metula and Yahmar, those are, that is the zone of battle. Yahmar is right near the Beaufort Castle. You can see the elbow of the Litani River there. It's only 4 kilometers from the border of Israel, but Israel made a big deal of it being crossing the Litani, but you can see clearly by this map why it's not that big a deal compared to where the Litani is north of, say, Bintush Bel. So that is where we're going to be focusing today. Let me show you another couple new maps that I pulled for you. These are NASA topography maps, which I think when you watch these videos, you know.
Any news about ice in the World Cup? I don't know. I hadn't looked into that. Kidman.
Know that it looks like this, but I thought I'd bring NASA topography to bear on this day's show, so you can see the significant mountainous and valleys in this area that are fighting. The main operations this week are in the upper left corner there, Zautar al-Sharqiya, and then Yahmar, and then to the east of Yahmar is the Beaufort Castle, which you can see on that cliff face edge there on the topography. Also, you can see on the right-hand side, it's not ideal the way the border is marked, but you can see the dotted line, that is the blue line that marks Israel from Lebanon. If you can see down to the left there, you see a town of Markaba. This week, a unaffiliated lone wolf rode his motorcycle from Beirut down to his village that had been ethnically cleansed and destroyed. And he crossed the border into Israel, scaled an Israeli military observation tower, and fired with a handgun on Israeli troops before he was killed. So that definitely shook up the Israelis. They've been, touting their military successes in the south, and so
I don't see anything about ice and the World Cup except that they're going to be there. That fans don't want them there, but they're going to be there for like as security against human trafficking or something like that, which is all just a ruse for them to basically scout more potential people to harass. It starts tonight, that's why I wonder. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I was not familiar.
Was able to enter Israel into the Galilee.
But yeah, it looks like if anything's gonna happen with ice in the World Cup, I guess we'll find out tonight and tomorrow.
Enter Israel in the way that Israel had been fearing for decades. But that was a lone wolf operation, so I thought I'd bring that to you. In the next slide, we zoom in a bit so we can get a better look at the topography in these towns. So there you see Zautar al-Sharqiya on the left there, and you see Yahmar on the right, and just above it in that open space with the high ground on the topography, that is the Beaufort Castle. So these are the areas that we will see these operations for this program. Let's take a look at the first operation, an anti-tank guided missile strike. We haven't seen as many of these on camera. These are dangerous operations.
Somehow I feel like it's going to be a disaster. Did you see Infantino's speech? No, who is that?
don't have cameras out for them as much. And we haven't seen Almas anti-tank guided missiles that were used in the earlier rounds that had cameras on board. But here you see the Kornet anti-tank guided missile crossing multiple kilometers here to target that tank that you see. This tank is going to intercept part of the missile. You can see the burst from its shotgun blast there. But the Israelis admitted that the tank commander on that vehicle was killed in that strike. So obviously the shape charge made it through and torched that tank. That was one of 5 Israeli soldiers killed in the first 6 days of the month. Here we're looking at what we're going to see for the next 20 minutes or so. Just to remind you what we're looking at with these FPV strikes, first-person view means they have a camera on board. You can see the battery pack on top, all component parts that can be many of them could be built 3D printed. Underneath, you see the PG-7VL, or the warhead from the RPG. It's a 93 millimeter warhead. It's a significant single charge warhead, anti-tank warhead. And underneath that, at the very bottom, you see the spool of fiber optic cable. We're not sure what percentage of operations are fiber optic and what ones are radio, but the fiber optic ones cannot be jammed, and they give low latency, sort of instant communication with the pilot and the vehicle. And so those are part of the success of these operations and part of the reason why Israel's so vexed in trying to come up with a solution for them. So that's what you're going to be looking at for the next little while. Let's look at the first operation, number 6. This is a 4 times FPV strike over the course of about 2.5 hours in Zoutar al-Sharqiya. This past week. Again, every video that you're going to see for this entire program has been published by Hezbollah in the last week since you saw me. That is the case every week, but sometimes it's...
Gianni Infantino tells reporters to, quote, chill, relax. Infantino plays the hits as FIFA's defender-in-chief. Oh, fuck.
Just reminds people. So this is a reconnaissance flight.
The Guardian, all sassy in their headlines.
This is one of the tools that this drone has, is that when you're coming in on your target, you can basically case the village and find, as you see here, each of their emplacements, where they've hidden their vehicles. And here's a strike on a Namr troop carrier with an engine compartment open. You can see on the right there, that's the engine has been taken out of that vehicle, obviously being repaired, maybe from a previous strike. In any case, here you see it burning. This is the drone following up 30 minutes later. So this has been on fire for 30 minutes, as well as showing you that that is the Namr that was just hit there that you can see. And so that's a battle damage assessment by FPV drone number 2, and then it'll carry on to its target here, the Merkava tank, and he's going to go underneath the netting and the sticks. I think they've been big on sticks for the last couple of weeks that are super protective from
sticks
warheads.
We've moved on from netting to sticks. The technology is evolving. So many problems in this World Cup. What other problems are there? The Iranian team have to fly back to Mexico after each group match in the US? Jesus Christ. That's so unfair, man. Yeah, so if you're a team that wins against Iran, congratulations, you beat a jet-lagged ass team. A tired, jet-lagged, exhausted team, probably. So fucking wild. A referee from Somalia was stopped at the US border even though he had accredited papers from FIFA. God. Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of papers, please. For sure. The United States is hosting it?
So he struck that. Now we have FPV-3 here. It's going to hunt
What a shit
another
show.
tank that is pretty well covered. That one is one of the better concealments that we have seen for these vehicles. But the drone doesn't care about your concealment. It just flies around the back and targets the vehicle from behind, right in the door, in the weakest part of the vehicle, the most target-rich spot to hit the tank. So all of the
Nice
effort that the
ones.
Israelis put into shrouding that tank in sticks and netting, and that was even tactical netting. This is tactical.
Oh, 3 countries host the World Cup. What the fuck? That's wild. Mexico, US, and Canada.
projectile netting too. So it's at least better netting than the fishing nets. But again, aiming for the rear door there, that you can see they've covered the tank with an Israeli flag to hopefully identify it while also concealing it. Contradictory there. 4 operations, 2 against Namers, 2 against Merkavas in Zautar al-Sharqiya over the course of a 2.5-hour window, one after another. The first flight gets the reconnaissance, gets the target acquisition, and the others follow up knowing where to go and where to strike. Let's look at number 7 because this is just
Nice.
this is the single strike on the Namer. You can see the engine open. Maybe we'll loop that one more time around. You can see the engine open there. You see it burning 30 minutes later. Here you can see the engine compartment open. So any kind of compartments being open are going to lead to your vehicle being torched. The warhead explodes, creates shrapnel and explosive material inside the vehicle, which lights it up. Let's take a look at number 8 here. This is over the base of Jabal Balat. I have reported on this a number of times. This is one of the 5 forward bases that Israel installed inside Lebanon during the ceasefire. We've seen operations here at this, what seems like a totally abandoned base all the time. Where's the soldiers? We got a long reconnaissance flight over to see where the targets are, to see if anyone is there before coming in and striking a Merkava tank here that also has a hatch open, which is probably going to make a significant mess, as we saw previously with the Namer. There you can see it identifies the tank, again, under netting that will protect this tank if the drone falls from the sky directly down. But they don't do that. They fly under the netting. They identify the tank in his little netting garage and then strikes right at the open driver's hatch. So this is sort of the new soldiers in the window from Gaza. If people remember back when the Israelis used to hang out in windows, the second half of the genocide, they've been leaving their hatches open and paying the price for that, or leaving doors open so that their commanders can be hit. So that is the hit on the open hatch. We can see that on the next slide. There you see it open. That's the driver's hatch, and the engine is in front of him there, and he has access to the cabin from his seat as well. Let's take a look at number 8. This is a series of 3 FPV drones. What you see there on the left is a smoke screen put up by the tank to conceal the dismounting of the troops. So there you see the soldiers dismounting out of the tanks and vehicles, moving into the building. So that smoke screen would also be a good cover if the drones fell directly down from the sky, but they don't.
I have a clip for you who explains everything, Joel. Okay. Yeah, we can get to that.
They fly around it.
Just drop a link in the chat.
And come down on ground level and appear to strike that group of soldiers.
That was definitely a kill.
This is the second FPV drone coming in to the same area. Again, these are often spread out by 20 minutes, 30 minutes. He's going to pick a tank here. Sorry, he's going to pick a Namer here and hit that in the rear. Again, you can see the netting all over that. And then now we can see, again, the burning from that strike. This is the third drone catching the battle damage about 40 minutes later. And you can see that all around that tank, that strike created a fire. Whether it did inside the tank or not is not clear, but it doesn't portend promising outcomes when everything around it is burning. So you see that from the third
that tank
drone.
is
Battle
just
damage assessments. This is what people wanted to see.
blown
a
open.
drone that records the damage. This was part of an operation the same day. 3 APCs and 1 tank hit. Let's take a look at number 9. We're going to get a thermal camera image here. Night attacks. Again, the Israelis had moved their operations to night, believing that Hezbollah didn't have thermal capabilities on their cameras, and they denied it until the very last moment last week, after 4 videos came out in the same day that I showed you last week. And again, consistent targeting, going for the rear door of the tanks, the weakest spot. So we're seeing really a concentration of targeting data being shared across the front line with these Hezbollah drone pilots, because these attacks are hitting the same spots, and those are the spots that you want to hit. Let's take a look at number 10 versus a Humvee here in the...
I love them sneaking around at night on bad intel. It's like, they can't see us if it's dark out. They've never heard of thermal cameras.
Riverbed. Again, it's Zautar al-Sharqiya. And you can see this is a Humvee with communications. It's probably a command vehicle. You can see it bristling with antenna here. On the back is usually full of that type of gear. You can see the antenna there.
Yes, I see the link. I'm going to get to it. I promise.
There, and a direct strike on that Humvee that destroyed it. The Humvees have no chance against this anti-tank warhead. You can see the computers in there as well, too. So command vehicle in Zautar al-Sharqiya. Let's take a look at 11. This is versus a D9. D9s and excavators have been pulled more or less from Lebanon. This was the only one this week, and Yedio Aeronaut said that the military has sharply reduced...
Take it easy, Joel. Stay safe. Hey, thanks, Lee. Thanks for stopping in. Take care.
So That's obvious, and they were destroying them in significant numbers. And so now Israel's ability to do demolition operations in areas where they're not fighting have dropped because they don't have guards for these vehicles. These vehicles were taken off the battlefield in significant numbers. 12 logistical vehicles in the last week alone taken out of the battle. We can take a look at number 12 now. Again, this is a two-strike operation. You can see the two tanks facing head-on here. Aiming for the turret gap on these is what the fighters are attempting to do. Looks like that was pretty close. And again, as soon as the warhead touches something, it ignites the molten dart that sends it into that underneath the turret gap, which is a weaker spot. This is a second drone, same operation, minutes later, usually 30, 45 minutes later, according to field reports. Presumably when the Israelis are expecting them one after another to keep them spread out like this, keeps them preoccupied. This is one of 19 FPV anti-tank strikes in the past 2 weeks. 6 of them were this week. This operation dates back to the last days of May, so the last.
Is this Ukraine? No, this is Lebanon.
Operations against FPV operations against tanks. Let's take a look at number 13. This is a tank that's guarded by sticks. You can see when it gets in close, it's going to hit it on its skirt and protect it. The protective sticks.
Isn't that crazy though that southern Lebanon looks like Ukraine now? A country that's been ravaged by a superpower. This is just southern Lebanon near Beirut. The roads are like dug up. The buildings are all picked apart. There's tank treads everywhere. And these little $200 drones are putting a fucking stick in the spokes of this whole campaign. It's wild.
It didn't work very well. I don't know what they think they're getting from that, but there's the sticks. There's a good shot of the sticks, protective sticks, volleyball nets, fishing nets. They're just winging.
The protective sticks.
The next one, 14, against a logistical vehicle. Again, we were talking about these. They're targeting these vehicles is a significant target. This is a fuel tanker, so all the tanks that run out of fuel very fast are based around this single HEMTT fuel tanker. Maybe there's multiple ones, but this fuel tanker is going to be exploded. And we have seen battle damage from these. They blow sky high. Obviously, you put an anti-tank round into the middle of a fuel tank, and you get quite a spectacle. But you also get that off the battlefield. And like I said, 12 logistical vehicles targeted this week. So double the number of logistical vehicles than tanks this week. So something to keep in mind as we go forward. And watch this one around again. You can see the way he picks the target and then comes back around, looping around, gets his balance. Instead of just diving down instantly on the target, he can get his altitude set. He can get his balance set and allow for better targeting. So these are all battlefield adaptations that we've been watching Hezbollah gain over the course of this battle, and now they are extremely effective in these strikes. So that is this is up near Beaufort Castle as well, all in that area. These operations are all in the same area this week, everything we're showing you. Let's take a look at 15. This is a drone navigating through airstrikes and what appear to be artillery strike.
Where am I from? I'm from mainland USA. Midwest.
That massive plumes and airstrike, but the secondary burning there, that is probably a barrage of artillery shells, which is how Israel operates. Again, these don't have much impact on the drones. The drone just flies through it, comes back down around the other side to strike the tank. And this is...
Ooh, that one's moving.
This operation was one of the 6 anti-tank operations with FPVs.
Or
with anti-tank guided missiles. There was
at least
10,
I thought it was.
Operations last week against tanks and 7 this week. So the same number of anti-tank guided missiles being used as FPV drones. FPV drones get all the attention. Let's look at 16.
As they should.
If you look in the upper left there, that's the Beaufort Castle. And you can see in the foreground that Israel has bombed and destroyed this area, presumably did that in the hours before that tank moved into the area. That's how the Israelis operate.
Yeah, it's pretty hot outside.
On the turret top, not sure that's the most ideal place. That's a pretty heavily armored place on the tank. But we can see that it was a direct hit for sure. So are we on 17 now? This is those were the anti-tank operations. These are the rocket operations that also don't get much attention. 89 last week and 83 this week, so nearly 200 rocket operations. This is a 32-barrel that they just showed you, a 32-barrel Katyusha launcher, Grad rocket launcher, 122-millimeter Grad rockets, but Iranian versions of the Grad rockets, and basically any rocket of this size in Lebanon has always been called a Katyusha. So you could see these barrages against Israeli troop positions. Again, 83 of these this week, and that's number of field reports. That's not number of missiles fired. So this operation that you're watching here with 32 rockets heading out, that just counts as one field report. So just to keep that in mind, we got another one here that's a bespoke Hezbollah launcher. So we see here an 18 2x9 of also Grad rockets on the back of like a bongo van, like a commercial, a lightweight commercial truck. But it does its job here. And this is an 18-barrel launch versus IDF troop positions in Odessa on Monday night. 89 of these operations last week, 83 of them this week. And these are the backbone of the operations against Israeli troop positions, which keeps...
Okay, so there's like another 10 minutes. Let's watch this link real quick.
Is the World Cup in chaos? It's all kicking off, and the tournament hasn't even started yet.
The greatest tournament in the world. Is this how the hosts behave?
Backroom staff and a referee barred.
I saw that guy's he was going viral talking about it.
Tournament in the world. Is this how the hosts behave?
Backroom staff and a referee barred from entering the US. Teams subjected to sniffer dogs and metal detectors on the tarmac, but not every team.
Something like this has never happened for a World Cup before, not even in police states like Qatar and Russia.
Many international fans haven't even got there yet, and some...
Oh, I guess... Oops. The United States has entered the chat as a police state. Is everybody shocked?
Some have had their visas revoked. But this is still the World Cup, and the excitement is massive. So why is this World Cup different to ones that have gone before? Will the noise pipe down once games start, or is this set to be a World Cup remembered for all the wrong reasons? Here's the breakdown.
That dude was curling with a huge medicine ball. Did you see that? Sorry, I'm getting focused on the wrong thing.
The FIFA World Cup is billed as an international festival of football, bringing people together from all over the globe to celebrate their countries on the pitch. But this year, the competition is caught up in President Trump's strict US border rules, and not everyone is welcome.
That dude was Lionel Messi? Oh, fuck. Hey buddy, that dude? Oh god, man. I know that name.
Welcome. There are 39 countries with a full or partial US travel ban under Trump's administration. Iran, Haiti, Cote d'Ivoire and Senegal are all playing in the World Cup, despite featuring on the list. Democratic Republic of Congo is not on it, but has been placed under restrictions because of the ongoing Ebola outbreak. The USA's war with Iran has affected the Iranian team as they travel to North America. They've already had The USA's war with Iran has affected the Iranian team as they travel
It's just
to
kinda
North
cool.
America. They've already had to move their training base from America to Mexico and say they'll have to commute into the States on the day of their games.
And what did I say? They would be jet lagged as fuck. At least they get first class and can lay out.
And Iran's football body claims FIFA revoked its ticket allocation for their group stage matches. The US State Department says the necessary visas have been issued, and they will not allow the Iranian team to abuse this system to sneak terrorists into the United States under false pretenses. Another World Cup country
That's the
on
narrative.
travel ban list is Senegal. They faced security measures on the tarmac when they landed in the US. Elsewhere, the Uzbekistan team was inspected by sniffer dogs when they arrived at a stadium in New York for a friendly. Amid accusations that the
So if you are a person of color competing, your country is subject to additional security measures. That's all I'm seeing here.
US has been hostile to its international visitors. New York's Democratic Mayor Zohran Mamdani released a welcome video.
Remember that we're all neighbors, so please treat everyone who's working hard to make your visit special with respect, and they'll return the favor.
These restrictions.
Yep. Great input, Mamdani. If it's all sunshine and rainbows, then it's all sunshine and rainbows, you guys. Mbappe is colored. Almost all the French national team is
haven't only affected
colored.
Teams. Somalian referee Omar Abdelkadir Artan was selected by FIFA as one of the World Cup's 52 refs, but he was refused entry.
They are all people of color.
To the USA over vetting concerns.
And I wanted to thank for FIFA for supporting me all the way, and Somali people also.
He says he was given an 11-hour immigration grilling before being sent back to Turkey, where his flight had come from. Somalia is on Trump's travel ban list, and the administration has pushed for Somali deportations in the past. FIFA found ways to bypass national immigration rules for ticket holders at the last 3 World Cups in Brazil, Russia, and Qatar. But this time seems different. They have distanced themselves from the Artan decision, confirming he will not referee in the competition and saying they do not get involved in host country immigration processes.
I think I get the point. Don't be idiots, just skip the World Cup. It's exposing America to be the exact same they accuse everyone else of being. FIFA's slogan for years, let's kick racism out of football, that really worked out well, hasn't it? FIFA is corrupt. Couldn't imagine a worse combination than greed and corruption of FIFA than greed and corruption of the US. Yeah. USA is the police state. Terrible place. Would never go there. Boycott. Just boycott it. USA should not host the World Cup. The most disgusting ever World Cup will be in 2026. America should never have been allowed to host the World Cup. Teams should have boycotted this sham. The FIFA Peace Prize is the biggest joke. Yeah, that was never... FIFA doesn't give out peace prizes. But they gave one to Trump. They invented a prize to give to Trump. The US is a police state. Yep, another comment like that. USA is the most violent place on Earth. Interesting. Let's continue with the FPV drones. Let me use the bathroom real quick.
Them under fire and in shelters and off of the battlefield effectively. That gives you a shot of the last one, but I give you a still in this next image to show you the bespoke truck launcher doing its job. That is not a military grade vehicle, but it does the job. And Hezbollah has been using these vehicles, repairing these vehicles, keeping them in the battle for this entire fight. So I wanted to bring those on. And also number 20 here, one-way attack drones. We don't have a lot of time to cover these every week, but these operations, I try to bring them in every week or two. These operations, Syed 107, attack drones. These are one-way attack drones, suicide drones, kamikaze drones. They're programmed at the destination there, and they're very accurate. And they are constantly being fired at Israeli troops. Last week, 28 separate operations. This week, 45 separate operations. And you can see that this is a six drone swarm. On the field report, that counts as one operation. So this is one of 45 different operations. So you're talking, hundreds a week of these are being launched. And you can see the fighters there setting them up. So that is Lebanon. And just to say a last word, Hezbollah spoke this week about Iran responding to Israel's attacks in Beirut. Hezbollah said on Tuesday that the Iranian missile response to the Zionist entity in defense of our Lebanese people is a message of moral, political, and field-level commitment from the Islamic Republic toward Lebanon after this enemy, with full cover from the American administration, persisted in committing its crimes against our country and resumed violations in the southern suburb of Beirut within the framework of its continuous violations of the ceasefire agreement, confirming its disregard for all international agreements. And now let's take a look at Iran. Again, a lot of fighting this week around the Strait of Hormuz, which you're looking at here. Iran on the north of the map there, the UAE and Oman on the, actually both sides of those are Iran. That's Qashm Island. That's the area around there, Bandar Abbas, Qashm Island. That is what has been targeted primarily by the Americans. They're saying they're firing at radars, even though Trump goes 10 times a day for the last 2 months saying that they have no radars, but apparently they do. Obviously they do, but Trump's lies always catch up. So those strikes all around responding to what the U.S. said was responding to an Apache helicopter that was apparently shot down by a drone. Iran did not take credit for that operation. CNN said that it was a Shahed 136 drone, and that just doesn't seem likely unless it was like literally crossfire. The Apache flew into it, so unclear. But the Iranians are not have not claimed that operation. The Apache crashed into the water off of Oman and was rescued 2 hours later by an unmanned surface vessel. So the Americans didn't send rescue forces into the Strait of Hormuz to rescue their pilots. They sent a drone boat to get them, to bring them out to a safer area to be put on a ship. So I think that...
Wait, so this Apache went down basically as an unforced error, and they didn't even... I think I remember hearing about this, that it was the first time that the United States has ever used a drone in a rescue operation.
Is somewhat telling. We can take a look at the next slide, is also the Strait of Hormuz.
Wow.
Just gives you a better sense of the way that the coast works and how small this area is, but also just the advantage that Iran has over these over the Persian Gulf countries. Kuwait was hit, Bahrain was hit repeatedly, and Jordan as well in these. Ali al-Salam Air Base in Kuwait was hit. Muwafaq al-Salti Air Base in Jordan. We know that was the one before the war that was bristling with F-35s. There wasn't even enough room on the runway for them. The refueling aircraft for this week of battle have been taking off from Ben Gurion Airport in Israel, using them as human shields, which Israel always does.
Say that again. What's taking off from Ben Gurion Airport, a civilian airport in Israel?
Ben Gurion Airport in Israel, way for them. The refueling aircraft for this week of battle have been taking off from Ben Gurion Airport in Israel, using them as shields, which...
Yeah, can't strike the airport where the refueling vessels are because it's literally a civilian airport. Yeah, Israel. Who's using people as human shields?
Israel always does. And Iran has said that their core position has been the same from the beginning, that the ceasefire is a ceasefire on all fronts of the axis, unequivocal. And so when Israel bombed Beirut, Iran responded by attacking Israel. And when they attacked Israel, they attacked the airbase from which the attack on Beirut took place from. And so again, Iran is responding to every violation. They're targeting appropriately within a rules of engagement that they're setting out with the understanding that this ceasefire period is going to be a protracted period of time. There's a deal in 3 days is not true. The negotiations for this will take months. And so Iran has been certain that they're not going to lose their strategic advantage by having these attacks take things that are being negotiated.
What? But Trump said that a deal was close.
Negotiated on off the table because of Israel's facts on the ground, or the Americans' facts on the ground. And that is the way that Israel has always done this. Trump said this week, boasted this week, that 200 commercial vessels had crossed the strait in more than a month, in the last more than a month, which would normally be 4,000. So it's a 95% reduction in transits through the Strait of Hormuz. Trump would probably say something like 12,000% decline. Let's take a look at some of these missile operations. This is what we have seen for a while. There's an EMAD. Medium-range ballistic missile. These are they've done heavy lifting during these strikes. You can see them go off in barrages. These strikes were on Kuwait and Bahrain, the Ali al-Salam Air Base, and the Fifth Fleet in Bahrain, and also key radars in Bahrain at the Sheikh Issa Air Base as well. You can see those go up. Those are what we are used to. We've seen more than 100 of these now in the past 4 days of this exchange of fire that we've been seeing. And this next one, 33 now. This is the Iranian Navy, the National Navy, the Islamic Republic Navy, launching anti-ship cruise missiles. That's the Gaza anti-ship cruise missile you're going to see. And here you're going to see an unseen Shahed drone that we haven't seen before. This is the Denai. There you see it launched there. And they said that those were launched at the USS Mason, the USS Truxtun, guided missile destroyers, and pushed them out. They were warning shots, the Iranians said, and fired also on the USS Tripoli. And the USS Tripoli is where the Marine Expeditionary Unit is stationed. And so the Iranian Army said, or the Iranian Navy said that these were warning shots to push them further out of the strait. After this there, we can look at 34 and see the launch of the Khyber Sheikhan. Solid fuel that you're seeing here looks a lot like the Palestine 2 being launched. So we're seeing the same missiles that we watched during the war. They're being launched in batches between a dozen and 30 each day. So more than 100 missile strikes along with drones have been fired this week. This was fired at David Air Base, and that is the air base where the operation in Beirut took place from. And we know from the Ramat David Air Base that the IDF was having a 100% interception rate like they always do.
Sweet
always
boy.
high. But open source information showed damage at a warehouse that was the home of the Israeli Air Force 157 Squadron, which is based at Ramat David Air Base, and it specializes in electronic warfare using armed.
Why so interested about this as an American?
Drones. So that target was hit.
Well, I think everyone in the world should be interested in what this terror state Israel is doing. But especially as an American, it's our tax dollars. Israel would not be able to conduct any of its campaigns of violent displacement, ethnic cleansing, and murder if it weren't for the United States' help. And I would rather live in a world where I knew about this than live in a world where I was not privy to this information. What are your views about the war between Russia and Ukraine? I mean, it's obviously a war of aggression against Ukraine, but at some point Zelensky has to choose between giving up land or more lives of his people. And I think he's chosen giving up the lives of his people every single time. And the United States has been no help. If anything, they've just been fueling the conflict by not being hard on Russia at all. Here's an interesting question. Would you say the same if the US was in the same situation? What do you mean? If Ukraine and the US swap sides? Like switch places? Like if it was the US being invaded by Russia? I would still say the same. I mean, it's a false equivalency because Ukraine does not have the fighting power that the United States does. If 20% of the US was occupied by a foreign country? I mean, if there was no way to fight your way out of that situation, then whatever imaginary country is fueling the United States to resist Russia, it would be on them. It would be on them to facilitate an end to the conflict. But also, it all just needs to stop anyway because the Chernobyl exclusion zone is being compromised. And the entire area will be unlivable if the concrete sarcophagus continues to be compromised. And part of Russia's desperation is fully manufactured by the United States economically. LOL, Russian troops walked right into the death zone without telling the soldiers of the danger. Yeah. Yeah, the Russian troops just randomly started occupying Pripyat, the village around Chernobyl, and they're like, you're... And then a drone strike actually hit the sarcophagus, and they're like, we need everyone to stop fighting in order for it to be safe for people to work on repairs.
Israelis had to admit it. Again, the satellite pictures we get from Israel are extremely hard to read because they're so low resolution. Let's take a look at 35. Part of the strikes that Israel retaliated with was hitting the Mashar petrochemical complex, the biggest in Iran. Immediately, Israel goes to civilian targets. And so Iran said, you'll regret doing that. And they launched, these are Ghadr ballistic missiles in this launch, and they were launched towards the Haifa refinery. So again, Iran not allowing, staying in control of the escalation ladder. And escalation dominance here, firing on logical targets, unlike the Americans hitting water installations or the Israelis hitting national petrochemical refineries. The Americans have said that they have tried to keep their strikes to radar installations and are trying to not kill people. So it doesn't seem like the Americans really want an escalation. I don't think they have anything to gain by an escalation. They already lost the first war. It's not like if you add another 20 days of war, the Americans will win. It's actually the opposite. The Gulf states are in a position of virtual existential battle should they.
I'm from Sweden myself, so the war in Ukraine is important for me. How close is... Sorry, this is my American education showing right here. How close is Sweden to Ukraine? I guess pretty close.
The war expand to them. And so this is certainly not a position where the U.S. or Israel has the upper hand. Of course, Israel wants to destroy the ceasefire because they want to continue their genocidal rampage with full U.S. Support, weapons, and money. Let's take a look at 35 now because they also got another Reaper drone. This is another Reaper that we've seen. And on this show, this is now about 50 that I have shown you between Yemen and Iran. The Americans admit to, indirectly admit to at least 30 being lost to Iran, and we know at least 25 lost to Yemen, and almost all of them on camera in some way. And one last thing, again, number 36, Yemen joined the battle this week as well.
And Kaliningrad have nuclear warheads close to Western Europe? Well, ground-based any ground-based silo has pretty much been mapped across the entire planet, especially Russia's. So it will probably be hit in a counterstrike in a nuclear exchange, or deflected. The nuclear power that you want to worry about is Israel. They have not signed any of the nuclear treaties. They haven't even officially acknowledged the fact that they have nukes. But I can tell you what is the name of the Israeli nuclear site. Shimon Peres Negev in the Dimona region. Wow, Google, that's weird, because Israel claims to not have nukes. Oh, okay. And they're pointing the finger at Iran, who have done nothing but peacefully enrich uranium. Meanwhile, Israel is the one who's warring with all of its neighbors, never actually declared its borders, committing a genocide, murdering children day in and day out. It's Israel who we have to worry about.
As well, because it's a ceasefire on all fronts. If it's not a ceasefire on all fronts are going to participate. Here's a Palestine 2 ballistic missile.
If it's not a ceasefire on all fronts are going to participate. Disagree? What, that Israel is the one to worry about?
Being launched at Tel Aviv, presumably being launched at Ben Gurion Airport, which is usually the target there. This was launched by the Yemenis. The Yemenis also announced that they had closed the Red Sea, the Bab el-Mandeb. The Red Sea is closed.
The most unstable country in the world that has nukes is Israel, and that is a fact.
To Israeli shipping, but that's been happening for 3 years. And I pulled this paragraph from Yedioth Ahronot in January talking about the closure of the Red Sea to Israeli shipping. And Yedioth Ahronot said, each morning, port workers arrive to empty docks, ready for ships that never come. Revenue that once totaled
No, that's North Korea. Come on, man. North Korea got nukes, and now they're kind of low-key flourishing. Like, they're all bluster and they're just yapping. North Korea is not going to do shit.
240 million.
They just want to be recognized as a real country. And North Korea has made good on 0 of their threats. Meanwhile, Israel is actively invading Lebanon and has something called the Samson option. What is the Samson option, Israel? The Samson option is the term commonly used to describe Israel's purported military strategy of massive nuclear retaliation as a quote-unquote last resort. The doctrine suggests that if the nation faces an existential threat, like maybe every country in the world convening and agreeing to arrest everyone in power and dissolve the country, that would be an existential threat. And its conventional defenses are defeated, Israel would launch devastating nuclear strikes to ensure that its enemies fall with it. Its concept gets its name from the biblical figure Samson, an ancient Israelite judge who, when captured and blinded by the Philistines, used his final moments of superhuman strength to pull down the pillars of their temple, bringing down the roof upon himself and the thousands of his enemies. So, no, I say again, it's Israel.
Million shekels a year has fallen to zero, while state assistance amounted to just 15 million shekels, according to port authorities. The port activity came to a halt in November 2023 after Houthi forces seized the vessel en route to Eilat.
Then we have two other countries who could start a third world war. A number of countries could, simply by launching their nukes, but in a real scenario, the most likely country to do it is Israel.
Shipping companies, including NYK and Zim, subsequently stopped sending ships to the port. The shutdown followed a record year in 2023.
As evidenced by their violent behavior for decades against Pakistan and India. At least they respond to, like, at least they can, like, talk to each other, you know? At least they adhere to treaties. To some extent. Israel is, by comparison, a rabid dog. That cannot be controlled. Even by the USA completely funding it.
When about 150,000 vehicles, that's mostly a vehicle port, 150,000 vehicles passed through the port. And by the and now it's zero, and that has happened either way. So Yemen announced that, but that was already a military objective achieved by the Yemeni. So that has been the resistance report on day 979 of Israel's genocide and day 102 of the battle in South Lebanon.
All right, we're gonna switch over to
Thank you, John.
let's see. I had it in another window. We're not going to listen to this whole thing. June 7th. Iran warned Israel not to attack Beirut. On Sunday, Israel attacked Beirut. As promised, Iran attacks Israel with 8 waves of missiles. US-Israel attacks Iran, and we're back to kinetic war. Got some visual aids here. What's going on here?
That I'd recommend. I've recommended Aria.
Yeah, I like music.
In the past, but I also want to recommend this one. Where am I? Just want to show you. Her name is Narges Rahmati. So Narges Rahmati, U.S.-Israeli strikes across Iran. Explosives reported in Tehran, Karaj, Tabriz, Kermanshah, and Isfahan. The airport apparently has been attacked by the U.S. and the Israelis, Mehrabad International Airport, and assassination attempts. So Iran apparently has attacked Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia.
Cool.
And also another round, possibly another round against Israel. So we are, I believe.
He's definitely doing a whole news roundup here that I think we're not going to hear anything that we didn't already hear from the Electronic Intifada. So we'll probably skip this. We missed you, Habibi. Yeah, he hasn't uploaded in a while. Pop rock metal, I can get down with. I like hip hop. I like metal. Oh shit, we got a fresh poll from a Good Politic guy 18 minutes ago.
Alright guys, so yesterday we had the continuation of the American bombing campaign inside of Iran. We had...
Go follow Good Politic guy on YouTube. Psh.
Trump threatening to blow up Iranian civilian infrastructure, their bridges, their power plants, etc. And Iran responded to that by saying that they were going to, in turn, attack the Gulf countries and American assets throughout the region. And then it looks like we just had today Trump taco number, anywhere from 6 to a dozen at this point. So he just posted this a couple of hours ago on his Truth Social. He says, based on the fact that discussions with the Islamic Republic of Iran have been brought to the highest level of Iranian leadership and approved, more on that here in a second, I have, as the President of the United States of America, canceled the scheduled strikes and bombings against Iran this evening. Discussions and final points have been, in both concept and great detail, approved by all parties involved, including the United States, Israel, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Turkey, Pakistan, Bahrain, Kuwait, Jordan, Egypt, and others. The naval blockade will remain in full force and effect until this transaction is finalized. Time and place of signing to be announced shortly. Now, there's a couple problems with this, which is that, number one, as Glenn Greenwald points out here, he has been repeating this exact same meaningless cycle every single week since he and Netanyahu started bombing Iran on February 28th. Number one, we won. Number two, they're begging to surrender. Number three, order Barack Ravid to announce that a deal is imminent. Number four, bomb again. And then number five, repeat the cycle. So we've seen this exact kind of statement from him over and over. He makes these massive threats of wiping out Iranian civilization or bombing their civilian infrastructure or taking them back to the Stone Age. And then the next day, when the markets are panicking and everything, he comes out with a statement like this, and he says, no, we're actually on the verge of a deal. And then you get the Iranian response, which typically has been...
Yes, I am aware of the Bituation Room. I was just about to say that it's just more of the same shit he's been saying. Yeah, it's Groundhog Day. This whole operation has just been, like, relying on people's short-term memory loss.
I don't know what he's talking about. We haven't agreed to anything. So we'll get to that here in a second. But we also had Donald Trump, in addition to posting that on Truth Social, say it should get done over the next few days, meaning the deal, probably have a signing in Europe, and it's a great thing. The stock market is up. The stock market likes the deal. If it goes down, it means they don't like it. So again, is this, the 12th example at this point that we've seen of Trump just putting out erroneous statements that he pulled out of his ass in order to manipulate the stock market while it's in the middle of a crash, reacting to his actions in the war in Iran? Kind of seems like it at this point. I mean, if a pattern continues for a long enough time, it's hard to break away from that kind of thought process. We also had Trump on the prospects of a deal here. Let's go ahead and listen to him on Fox News real quick.
It could be the greatest deal in history. They could wave the white flag.
My biggest issue with Trump is his age. So you're saying that if it was like a young Trump doing everything that he's doing right now, you'd be cool with it? That's crazy to say, bro. I'm sorry. Hands down, the biggest issue with Trump is the fact that he's a fucking fascist. And a racist. And a pedophile. I said biggest, not least issue. Okay. Okay, my biggest issue with... Okay. But, like... You don't think it's also... You don't think it's worse that he's a pedophile?
Flag of surrender. They could say, we surrender, we're finished, we've had it. The United States is the greatest power. Praise be to...
I'm giving you every opportunity to walk that back.
Real quick.
It could be the greatest deal in history. They could wave the white flag of surrender. They could say, we surrender, we're finished, we've had it. The United States is the greatest power. Praise be to Allah. And they could do all of this. They could say it loud and clear, and the fake news would say it was a great victory for...
I need a sound drop of Trump saying praise be to Allah.
For Iran. I mean, it's the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Okay, so he says it could be the greatest deal in history if Iran waves the white flag. They say,
praise be to Allah.
That they surrender, that the U.S. is the greatest power
shit.
to Allah. The problem with this is that it's fully detached from reality, and he's completely and utterly delusional. Iran is nowhere remotely close to waving any sort of white flag or surrendering or even bending the knee to core U.S. demands in these negotiations, as far as we're aware. I mean, as I've been saying for months at this point, Trump has no military options that are viable that would improve the situation that he's currently put himself in. And so he's going to have to cut a deal with them, and it's going to have to be an uncomfortable deal because he's going to have to make some major concessions to the Iranians, given the fact that this has been clearly an unmitigated, humiliating defeat for Trump and for the U.S. empire broadly. So that's just the reality of the situation that he finds himself in. He can't accept that reality, and so instead he makes up these like fake scenarios where Iran waves the white flag and he walks away victorious. Now, we get to this, because we had a double, the ultra rare double Barack Ravid post here. So in his initial article, he said Trump cancels Iran strikes as mediators claim that a deal is close. I mean, again, how many of these exact kind of reports have we?
Sorry for fucking around with the subtitles. I couldn't find a variation of it that I liked. My bad.
Over the last couple of months that a deal is right around the corner, according to the Trump administration or unnamed sources. But he updated this with his own quote tweet saying that FARS, a semi-official news agency, which is affiliated with the IRGC, quoted an informed source who was close to Iran's negotiating team as saying that, quote, no text for a preliminary memorandum of understanding with the United States has been approved. So
Barack Ravid works for Axios. Axios is an Australian news outlet.
Again, the cycle repeats. Trump makes all of these threats against Iran. Iran says, okay, go for it. We're going to blow up everything in the region. Trump then backs down and he says, never mind, I'm calling off the strikes. And the deal is right around the corner. And then Iran comes out and says, what the fuck are you talking about? We've agreed to absolutely nothing. So again, exact same thing that we have been seeing for weeks and weeks and weeks at this point. We also had more here. Iranian Fars news agency claims that Trump
have to sleep soon. What time is it in Sweden?
Is trying to frame Iran as having accepted a deal under U.S. bombing pressure, while Tehran has not given a final response. According to the report, Qatar's mediation recently over the last couple of days here led the U.S. to return to an earlier draft that Iran had given them after Washington had sought new additions that Iran refused to review. The outlet says that Iran has not issued a final response, but that a renewed review of that original text is possible. So, okay, it looks like what happened here.
11:29 late evening.
A couple of weeks ago, there was some sort of an initial memorandum of understanding, right? Like a basic framework of an initial deal, nothing final, everything would have to be negotiated from that point onwards. But this initial memorandum of understanding was sort of like loosely agreed to, or like they had relatively few issues to iron out. Then Trump comes in and he says, no, I want this edition and this edition and this edition to be added to the deal at the last minute. And then Iran turns around and they say, okay, well, never mind then. Right? We're not even entertaining this. We're not discussing this. We have this original framework that we're close to agreeing to. Let's stick to that original framework. Trump comes in, he offers these new proposals, whatever. And then you have this tit for tat back and forth of us attacking their oil tankers, them downing our drones and Apache helicopters. And then we have this massive explosion of violence over the last couple of days. We have Israel bombing Beirut and Iran bombing Israel in turn, and Israel bombing Iran against the demands of Donald Trump. So we had this recent explosion of violence after that initial deal had sort of stalled out because of Donald Trump trying to add things in at the last minute. Now, it looks like Trump is basically using this most recent
thank you so much for the follow.
Violence to then pretend like, no, what actually happened here, it's not the U.S. returning to the framework that Iran had given us before. It's actually Iran, under this intense bombing campaign from the United States, throwing up the white flag and accepting some sort of a deal that was imposed on them.
I'm from Israel, ask me anything. You come into a stream titled Fuck Israel and you think people are gonna be like, ooh, someone from Israel. Time to sit my ass down and listen. Fuck Israel. How does it feel to be a Zionist? Piece of shit. Yeah, I judge people based on their country and no other info. If your country is Israel and you're from a fucking ethno-state that shouldn't exist, yeah, not only do I judge them, I ban them. Get fucked. No one wants you here. Your country shouldn't exist. Get fucked. You slimeball piece of shit.
By Donald Trump. So again, it's just sort of like a narrative battle in which Trump is trying to insist that he's walking away from this as the victor, which just is.
I'm from Israel, ask me anything. How does this ban hammer feel?
isn't the case, but if that's what it takes for him to mentally wrap his head around finally ending this, then okay, fine. I don't care if Trump claims victory in this situation, but it looks like that's exactly what's happening here. Now, this came after, I mean, we had all of these threats that were coming out. We had Trey Yingst. This is just from yesterday on Fox News. He said he spoke to President Trump tonight as he oversaw U.S. military strikes against Iran from the Situation Room. The president told me that he spoke directly with Iranian officials tonight who asked him to stop bombing. Okay.
Imagine the audacity. 49. Imagine the audacity coming into a stream called Fuck Israel, and you're like, I'm from Israel, ask me anything. Nobody fucking wants you here, bro. Do you know how Israeli tourists are treated in Greece? Get spat on everywhere you go, fucking loser.
Tomahawk missiles had been fired by the United States at the time that he spoke to him, and along with bombing from fighter jets, the closest target to Tehran was approximately 40 miles outside the city. Trump added that the bombing would stop shortly, but if they don't sign the agreement, we'll bomb the shit out of them. And Trump called this the most violated ceasefire in the history of the world. No.
I know what you're thinking. Like, if you're thinking like, oh, that was just a guy from Israel. He wasn't part of the IDF. He wasn't part of. Every civilian has mandatory service. But even if you refused service and stayed in Israel, it's your duty to leave Israel. You are still a Zionist if you are one person at a table of 9 other Zionists. You're still on stolen land. Get the fuck out. I know you have another passport, so leave. Use your airport that's being used as a military base and get the fuck out.
That would actually be the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, or
don't come into streams and be like, ask me anything about living in an ethno-state. Motherfucker, it's time for you to shut the fuck up and just pack up your bags and get the fuck out of where you live. It's not time to enter a chat and talk. There you go. There he left. Bye.
Between Israel and Hezbollah, which Israel has violated literally tens of thousands of times. But finally, he says, Vice President J.D. Vance told me that the United States is dealing with both moderate and more extreme voices in Iran as part of the negotiating process. So again, as of last night, he was still saying we might be bombing the shit out of them last night, right? We also had Trump on his Truth Social account posting this earlier today. He said the United States will be hitting Iran, whose Navy, Air Force, radar, anti-aircraft, and other forms of defense together with its most offensive capability are gone very hard tonight. At some point in the not-too-distant future, we will be taking Karg Island and other oil infrastructure points and assume total control of their oil and gas markets, much like we have with Venezuela, which is working out brilliantly for both Venezuela and the United States of America. So literally earlier today, before he backed down from all of this, he was floating a full-blown U.S. invasion, boots on the ground, in Karg Island to try to directly acquire Iran's main oil terminal that they have. I mean, what are we talking about here? First off, this
I like this response down here from Nera Tandon. Apparently, we don't have a deal.
would never work, right? And there have been numerous reports from the Iranians, and he also went on Fox News and repeated the same thing, saying my preference has been to take Kark Island. I don't think that America has the stomach for it. To be honest with it, you'd make a fortune. So again, just sort of like brazen imperialist threats that he's making here. But he is admitting that, yeah, the American people probably don't want to see, probably hundreds of American troops get blown up by Iranian drones on this island. But again, we had Iran reinforcing this island for weeks and weeks and weeks, expecting that the U.S. may try to do something like this on the island. So
he's not wrong. It would be troops, American troops versus Hezbollah drones. Not good. That would not end well.
I mean, they say here from CNN, Iran has spent months preparing for a potential U.S. attack on Kark Island. After U.S. strikes in March, Iran reinforced the island with additional troops, air defenses, and shoulder-fired surface-to-air missiles. It also deployed anti-personnel and anti-armor mines, including along the beaches where U.S. forces might land. So, again...
Like, they're not going to let the island go without a fight. Does it even need to be said that people are going to get hurt if this operation is a go?
An invasion of Kark Island wouldn't work. Number one, because of all of the militarism or the military assets that Iran has put on the island in the last couple of months here, but also because even if you did take the island, well, what happens after that? I mean, you would have hundreds, a couple thousand American troops who are just sitting on this island as Iran can just continuously fire a barrage of missiles and drones at them. Like, in what possible world would that lead to anything other than catastrophic casualty losses for the United States military? Like, that's inevitably what would happen. So it's completely deranged that he would even float the idea of going forward with this kind of plan, but it does show you how utterly desperate he is at this point. Now, we also had, again, just as of yesterday from Drop Site News, the U.S. was launching new strikes on Iran as explosions were reported near the Strait of Hormuz. U.S. Central Command said that American forces began carrying out additional, quote, self-defense strikes, okay, against multiple targets in Iran at around 5:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, saying that the attacks were ordered by President Trump and claiming that they were launched in response to Iran's continued aggression. CENTCOM did not cite any new Iranian attack in response to that. But I mean, again, Iran's continued aggression. I mean, we have a fifth, a third of our navy that is surrounding the country of Iran. Imagine if this was reversed and it was any other country, right? Imagine that China pulled up with a third of their navy on the shores of the United States. They were flying around attack helicopters, flying around drones, fighter jets, etc., trying to do an embargo on our, our exports of oil to the rest of the world. We're constantly taking pot shots at us directly on our coast and in our largest cities. Like, what do you think the United States of America would do? Would we think that it's aggression on our side to fire at that military equipment from China on our shores? Like, of course not. It's complete nonsense. This isn't continued aggression from the Iranians or self-defense strikes in any way. I mean, this is a hostile, illegal war of aggression that was launched by Trump and by Israel in correspondence with that. But again, the strikes were continuing as of around 5 p.m. yesterday in Sirik, in Manab, in the Korgan port, in Bandar Abbas as well. I mean, explosions all around the country. We also had CENTCOM here, and this is just kind of a hilarious post. I mean, they're doing these true false claim fact checks things that they're putting out on Twitter. And so they said the claim, which is not true according to them, Iranian state media sources are claiming that Iran has attacked a U.S. warship in the Strait of Hormuz. False. The truth, no U.S. warships have been struck. Now, I don't know whether or not this actually happened. They certainly wouldn't admit it if Iran successfully struck a U.S. ship near the Strait of Hormuz. But this was also being reported not only by Iranian media, but also by Israeli media as well. So it looks like something may have actually happened here, and CENTCOM definitely doesn't want to admit that Iranian missiles or drones could have possibly gotten through their defenses. It wouldn't be shocking at all. I mean, we literally just had reportedly an Apache attack helicopter that was down in the Strait of Hormuz, so it's not like they don't have the capabilities to do something like this. But here's CENTCOM again, just doing their little, quote-unquote fact checks, we'll call them, for now on their Twitter account. We also had another one that was kind of amazing where the fact check was, Iran says that the Strait of Hormuz is closed. False. The truth, the Strait of Hormuz is open. It's like, you can't just say that and expect it to become reality. It's just not what's actually happening on the ground. But okay, I guess if you just sort of will it into existence. Now, last couple of things that I had here for you guys. I mean, I mentioned this in my video yesterday, but this back down from Trump comes after we had reporting like this from Jeremy Scahill of an Iranian official telling him that if the U.S. fully resumed the war, that Iran would launch attacks against American interests across the region. They said, we have taken advantage of the ceasefire to restore and strengthen our missile capabilities. Trump lacks the ability to make a decision necessary to end this disgraceful war, and we are fully aware of this reality. He says the reality, the official said, is the basic outlines of a deal were in place, and Trump disrupted the agreed-upon negotiating framework and made new demands. From our perspective, there is absolutely no possibility of responding to it as it falls outside the framework of negotiations. So exactly what I was explaining earlier. Now, if Trump does go back to the framework that was originally getting close to being agreed upon, then there could be positive discussions. I'm not, completely counting out the idea that there could be some sort of an agreement that's reached in the near future, but that requires Trump to make concessions to the Iranians, which so far he's refused to do so. And again, you have this, this statement here on how they have been able to replenish their missile capabilities, their drone capabilities, their air defense capabilities, etc. And in the meantime, the U.S. just can't do the same thing on the same time scale that the Iranians have, with their, cheaply mass-produced drones that they have at their disposal. U.S. interceptor munitions take years and years and years to replenish, and our stockpiles were rapidly and massively depleted throughout just the first month of this war, largely by, defending Israel primarily was our objective there. Now, final thing that I have here for you guys, we had Galibaf, the Speaker of the Iranian Parliament, who said just today earlier, wrong strategies and impulsive decisions will reset the entire board. For worse, explode energy infrastructure and markets and create an endless quagmire that you will be stuck in for years. You will see a different Iran. So again, sort of floating that if you blow up our energy infrastructure, we're going to do the same throughout the region, and it's going to be something that you are stuck dealing with for years and years into the future. So, I mean, look, again, just to summarize what it looks like happened here is you had this deal that was on the table from a couple of weeks ago that it looks like they may have been getting close to agreeing on. It was just an initial deal, not anything final or whatever, but something to to stave off any sort of violence in the immediate term so they could negotiate for a real broader term. And then Trump comes in and he starts adding a bunch of demands to that deal. The Iranians say, no, we're not going to talk about that. Let's stick to the original framework. Then you have Israel bombing inside of Beirut. You have the US and Iran getting into a tit for tat, which then explodes into this massive back and forth cycle of violence that we've seen over the last couple of days. And then now Trump is apparently going back to the original deal that he had initially disrupted and tried to add a bunch of shit to. And he's saying, no, we'll go back to negotiating along this framework, while trying to simultaneously spin the narrative as though this recent bombing campaign that we just did forced the Iranians to accept his demands, which is just not at all the reality that we're seeing in front of us. So that's all that I got for you guys. In this one, I mean, classic Trump shit. I don't know why we would expect anything else, but there goes, I guess, taco number, 10 at this point.
Politic guy has the best politics. Believe me.
Wow. And Hassan, a talking head on Navarra Media. Exactly what Pat Empanada said was going to happen. Alright, I'm gonna get going. Take this puppy outside. And I'll be back with some gaming. Peace out.
Where's your fucking badge, you pigs? We go hard for Palestine. We escalate for Palestine. We fight for Palestine. We give it everything we got. We do not work with the police. We do not point people out to the police. We do not lay hands on our comrades. When we go hard for our people, you stand out the way. If you ain't with it, stand out.